6 days later.
I'm thinking of writing another book.
Myne said pensively over her third glass of bees. At her friend's random statement, Frida put down her own wine glass and gave her friend a look.
This again? I thought you said Summerside would be your first and last foray into writing romance novels.
Myne snorted in an unladylike way and finished her drink before putting the empty glass on the small side table at her elbow. Her attendant, Rozemyne, wordlessly took the glass and the bottle away, while Myne continued talking.
Well, you see, now that I'm to have my own printing press, I figured that we can print way, way more books now. No more of this secretly printed stuff from before. I have 2 ready to go from 2 of my scholars, but they're going to be printed by the existing workshops so they can be in time for the winter sale.
So you want to work on new material while you set up your own workshop?
Exactly.
Myne explained to her that while her scholars had been transcribing several poetry and history books from her book collection, many of which were being written in a more modern language, she also wanted to cater to the biggest book consumers.
Noble ladies and lords want something exciting. Stories. I need many more stories.
Frida smiled bemusedly. It was always fun to see Myne get worked up over a new project, but the truth was that Myne's first and only book had brought them no end of trouble when it fell into the wrong hands. From a business perspective, spring and summer had been nothing short of amazing. Autumn, however, had brought them all kinds of trials, and for a while she had feared that her wonderful tea shop was doomed. Thankfully, after several days of tension, days when she worried, as Myne went to the castle to various meetings to talk about business with Lady Charlotte, Lady Elvira, and even the Archduke's wife, it looked like everything would be all right after all. Frida had sighed in relief when Myne had told her that everything had worked out, and that they might resume business as soon as their customers chose to come back, of course. That would be a challenge, but Frida had few plans to help with that. As to what had happened during the meetings, Myne had been rather vague, but the terms of the contracts that she had brought back for her perusal were clear-cut, and while not ideal, Frida was just glad that she could continue doing business. This girls' night in, as Myne called it, was their celebration party of sorts. As concubines in the nobles' district, Frida and Myne enjoyed relative freedom in their pampered, day-to-day lives. The one perk of being something of social outcasts was that they didn't have to get involved with society and all its tedious activities. However, once 6th bell rang, their time was no longer their own. Whether or not their dark lords actually visited them, it was tacitly understood that the evening hours were reserved for them, so it was a rare occasion when Frida and Myne ever had dinner together, let alone stayed overnight at each other's houses. So when the chance ever arose, they made it count. Henrik was now to be involved in the printing industry, and was at this moment in the north of Ehrenfest for business related to that, while Lord Eckhart was in the sovereignty accompanying Lord Ferdinand in some meeting as his guard knight.
Well,
Frida said, raising her glass toward Myne.
good luck on your book, I guess. Do you know what it's about?
Myne nodded.
Yeah, just the other day I had a little bit of inspiration. I want it to be a book that is shamelessly hopeful, optimistic. I want a happily ever after.
Frida stretched lazily on the large couch they were both sitting on and sighed.
Thinking about your writing makes me feel exhausted. I don't know how you can just hold up for days on end like that. What would Tuesday say if she knew you were pushing yourself so hard?
Myne, who sat on the other end of the couch, curled into a ball under their shared blanket and averted her eyes.
She would scold me. But even if she did, I still wish Thule were here. Not that you're poor company, of course. It's just that I've been so busy I haven't been able to have my family over. And there's so much I want to talk to her about.
It that you wanted to talk to Tootie about.
Frida asked after she waited, hoping that Myne would want to confide in her instead. She hadn't.
What?
Myne asked, closing her eyes and sounding sleepy all of a sudden.
You said you had lots to talk to her about.
Myne murmured, but she still did not answer. Frida wanted to shout. It was so unfair. To her, Myne was her one and only friend, whom she trusted with absolutely every single secret. If Myne ever needed anything, there was nothing Frida would stop at to help her. But the same was not true with Myne. Oh, she knew that she had done terribly in trying to trick her into joining her family's company back when they had been girls. But surely Myne could find it in herself to forgive her one day, couldn't she?
Oh, wait, sorry. You always do this, Myne.
Frida said, trying to keep her exasperation off her voice.
You should have told her what you wanted. I'm sure your family doesn't mind at all. Dropping what they're doing to see you. Especially not Tootie.
I can't, though.
Myne said, opening her eyes again.
Tuli's work is important to her. I respect that. And she said she and Corina are swamped with work. She'll come on Earth Day. As to the book, it really is just a way to escape. All I want,
Myne said, looking into the flames dancing on the hearth,
is to get lost inside a story. A beautiful dream where everything works out and everyone is happy. A story where love triumphs.
She gave a bitter little laugh and sighed.
Like any of that could ever happen.
Rita frowned. Myne did not sound much like her old self. She wanted to ask what was wrong, but Myne yawned and spoke before she could say anything.
Listen to me. I think I drank too much. What do you say we go to bed now?
Just as they always did. When they spent the night at each other's houses, Frida and Myne slept on the same bed. Usually they would chat late into the night and would gradually drift into sleep amongst the soft, flower-scented sheets and pillows. But Myne was uncharacteristically quiet as their maids helped them into the massive bed, drew the curtains around them, and blew out the candles.
Good night, Myne.
Frida whispered.
Myne?
Frida raised herself on an elbow and strained to see her friend in the darkness. But, while she couldn't see much more than her outline, she could hear the faint noise of crying.
Myne, what's the matter?
Frida scooted closer to Myne and reached for her friend. She placed her hand softly on her friend's shoulder, and suddenly the soft sounds of crying got louder, and Myne was crying in earnest. Frida did not know what she could do or say for her friend, except maybe hold her and give her a few pats while she cried. But suddenly Myne was latching on to her as she opened up at last.
Oh, Frida, I don't think I can do it.
Myne said, weeping.
All these noble women are so scary. I feel like they're going to eat me up. I hate it so much. I only ever wanted to read books. How did I end up suddenly plunged in the world of nobility? I want no part of it. I really don't.
Can't you ask for help? Maybe just leave it to Lady Charlotte's scholars. They are fairly competent. They can take over. Sure, it won't be as satisfying or profitable, but
Myne shook her head.
No, I need to be there. Now that I've seen how everything works, I've seen how ridiculously heavy-handed nobles are. I owe it to the people in the lower city who rely on me.
It suddenly dawned on Frida that Myne's burden was impossibly heavy, and she was struck with shame for the times she had envied her friend's new position in society. She hated to admit it, but there it was. There had been times when she'd even felt hurt and afraid at the thought that her friend would forget her in that glamorous world and that she'd meet and make other friends and like them more than she. But reality was far crueler, wasn't it? Noble society was rife with opportunities, but it was also strewn with dangers and intrigues. Frida bit her lip and patted the back of her weeping friend as she hugged her. She wished heartily that she could say something, anything to help. But what?
This thanks to Lord Eckhart?
Frida asked.
Eckhart?
Myne sniffled, having calmed down somewhat.
I haven't. Why?
He is your protector. And even I have times when I find myself at a loss, and I bring up some concerns to Henry. I know he's only a lay noble, and not very wealthy, but he is good to me, and more importantly, he's a noble by birth, and has a perspective that I don't have because I wasn't born a noble. If something is bothering you, you need to speak to Lord Eckhart to help you find a solution, or some advice.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
Myne, you always try to take everything up yourself, but you should learn to rely on him a bit more.
Myne pondered her words until at last she said,
He has helped me in the past. I think he would be understanding. But you know our relationship isn't, well, like yours.
Frida sighed, understanding what Myne wanted to leave unspoken.
Yes, but eventually, we'll have to bury his children, right? When that happens, it will be no different than being family. So, if you think about it, isn't it natural that you should start relying more on him?
Myne's cries intensified for some reason, and she held on to Frida tighter.
What is that?
Frida said. Myne had mumbled something, but she hadn't been able to hear what it had been.
But I don't love him. Not in that way.
Frida was truly at a loss for words, and suddenly she was afraid to ask the question.
Has he been currently forced himself on you?
What? No.
Myne said, shocked, and that somehow cut the flow of tears entirely. She sat up and fumbled with something on her side of the bed. A facestone embedded in the headboard began to glow softly. Myne drew her knees up to her chin and sighed. Then she began speaking thoughtfully.
No. He hasn't been cruel to me. He's actually really sweet and devoted, not to mention patient. And when he holds me, I feel very safe.
The tension in Myne's face eased as she spoke about Eckhart, but then she shook her head as if dispelling unwelcome thoughts.
But I can't feel for him that way. And I have the feeling that he also doesn't care for me in that way either. He treats me like a little sister.
Frida wanted to shout. No one in Frida's own acquaintance, noble or otherwise, ever let the lack of love or romance get in the way of a good match, and Myne had struck gold in her opinion.
Myne, you know that we are concubines, right? Love and romance are never part of the deal.
I know. I know.
Myne said, looking like she wanted to break into tears again.
It's a business transaction. I understand that in this world things are very different. Even my own parents were fortunate that they loved each other. But otherwise, marriages are practical. I understand. And I promise you that when the time comes, I shall do my end of the bargain and let it happen.
Frida gave her a pointed look.
Let it happen? You need to be more engaged into the process when the time comes. Letting it just happen would be.
Oh, God, so what was she saying? She was not going to talk about nighttime affections with Myne. She was not.
The point is,
she said after clearing her throat.
you are entering nobility, and it sounds like you feel like you're facing your future without friends or support. But you don't have to face it all alone, Myne. In fact, you'd be a fool to try to take it on by yourself. Use what you have to your advantage. His name, his family, his status, his connections. They'll be your shield. What's more, you have the backing of Lord Ferdinand, who is the Archduke's brother. Use them all!
Myne suddenly covered her face with her hands and hid her face in the bed covers.
Myne!
But this time, Myne just sobbed and sobbed, harder than she had before, in fact. And Frida had no idea what she had said to make Myne cry so, and less idea as to what to do about it. Myne had gone through this conversation with herself countless times, and she knew Frida was entirely right. She needed to remember that her heart and her feelings were not part of the equation, but her heart was not getting in with the program. She'd done her best to ignore the pangs of suffering that she felt whenever she saw Ferdinand during all those meetings, and she'd done her best to smile, kneel, give greetings, and such. But she truly was at a breaking point. Seeing him, talking to him, and pretending that she didn't yearn to touch him was just torture. She couldn't handle seeing him so often and be reminded at every meeting about just how much she loved him.
If only I could stop seeing him for some time. I'm sure distance would make things easier, and my feelings could have the chance to sort themselves out.
But as long as Sylvester was in his Jarib, Ferdinand would preside over the meetings, taking charge, because Lady Charlotte and Lady Florencia and their scholars were not enough to keep things running without a strong authority figure to take the lead. As she cried, Myne felt Frida's arms around her, and somehow she felt both deeply embarrassed and deeply grateful. Embarrassed because this was the first time she ever fell apart in front of her, but thankful because Frida was a patient listener, and she was there. Often when she cried like this, she was all alone in the darkness of her own bed, and there was never someone to hold her or pat her hair while murmuring words of comfort as Frida was doing. Poor Frida was very perplexed, and she looked a bit anxious, but she did not pressure her into explaining herself, and was there for her until Myne cried herself out. Her face was red and swollen from all the crying, but at least it was all out. Frida got out of bed and ran to the bathroom. She returned with towels, a cool wet one to wipe her tears and snot, and the softer one to dry her face with a calming flower fragrance to pat it dry. Myne realized then and there that Frida was a true friend. She thanked her.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's gotten over me lately.
Frida shook her head.
I'm sorry I can't be of more help, but I am glad that I can at least be here for you, even if I don't have any words of advice to give.
Myne assured her that she had done plenty. In fact, her presence had made a world of difference. Loneliness was a huge part of what made Myne feel so despondent at times. After that, they decided to sleep at last. Myne turned out the light once more, and they both settled back into their pillows. Myne reached over and took her friend's hand with a murmured word of thanks, and Frida squeezed Myne's hand gently as she assured her that all would be well and that she would always be willing to listen to her. Myne closed her eyes in silence while hearing the wind outside rise and buffet her window. Frida eventually drifted to sleep, but Myne lay awake, thinking long into the night. She had cried herself out now, so she was able to now think things through without getting so emotional. It wasn't just that she hated meetings and tea parties. Well, she did hate them. They were a massive waste of time, and she was not very good at socializing. She figured she'd get better in time. It wasn't that the women of high society scared her. They did scare her, but she was far more scared of Lady Elvira, and she was on her side. A single glance from her had been enough to quell the insolent looks and whispers Myne had received on her first social gathering. She'd had Eckhart's protection at the start, but now that his mother had accepted her and taken her under her wing, she had as good as the support of one of the most powerful families in Ehrenfest. After only a few days socializing, she realized the unspoken truth. No one messed with the Linkbergs. Okay, so what about her family and friends in the lower city? Her heart gave a little pang. Ah, yes. She felt further and further away from her family and friends the more she took part in the world of nobility. She couldn't help but feel that as of late Tully and Mom and Dad, Camille, and even Lutz had begun treating her with a little bit more deference. They never scolded her or poked fun at her. Why? Why were they being more formal? Was it because she now lived in a huge mansion and wore all those fancy dresses and had an army of servants to do her bidding? She was still the same as ever. The growing distance she felt from her family was part of the reason why she was so miserable. Maybe Frida was right. Maybe she needed to have her family more often. Maybe they were under the impression that she was the one putting distance from them. Maybe they thought she was too busy to see them. Myne was shocked. Why hadn't she thought of that earlier? No, she would rectify the situation and have them over more often. Myne got closer to the end of her list of things that were keeping her awake at night. It also wasn't because she felt that she couldn't, when the time came, be Eckhart's concubine in every sense of the word. Frida's words of advice echoed in her mind, and she was grateful for the insights she'd provided. When she thought about how Eckhart and she might be family, and she needed to rely more on him, it made sense. She guessed she could rely on him more. In fact, if she was honest, she couldn't think of any other noble of her acquaintance that she liked, respected, and even trusted more than Eckhart. He never failed to set her mind at ease, and in the event that they had children together, she was sure he'd end up being a really good father. He'd probably end up being a much warmer and nurturing father than Ferdinand would ever make. Yet her heart squeezed painfully, so much so that she had to take in a deep, shaky breath to keep control of her emotions.
There it is, the root of the problem.
On a wholly instinctual level, Myne wanted him and only him, regardless of reason and regardless of what disadvantages such a union might have. Just imagine the scandal that would take place if she suddenly switched over from being Eckhart's concubine to being Ferdinand's. Yet something inside her contended against any outcome other than that she should become Ferdinand's and he should become hers. She closed her eyes and visualized a dazzling strand of variegated colors. A strand that was actually made up of two individual strands, and which, woven together, were part of a tapestry of breathtaking beauty.
Sterat has made it so. You cannot strive against the gods.
She'd heard those words, and she'd seen these things in dreams countless times now. But she didn't understand them. All she knew was that it meant that she should never accept any other outcome except the one in which Ferdinand and she became one, like that strand. She accepted that fact unquestioningly, ever since she'd become aware of her feelings. But this was the first time she asked herself, why? Why him? He had proven to her again and again that he was of ice and marble. He was inexorable as death, Jane Eyre, and unmoved by either passion, warmth, or tenderness. So why did she want him so? Why was she making herself sick over him?
I need to move on.
She whispered to herself in the dark.
I am tired of crying every day. I have far too many things to do now. I need to move on.
But now the question was, how to move on? As if in answer to her question, Frida's words came to her mind.
What you have to your advantage. Lord Eckhart's name, his family, his status, his connections will be your shield.
Could she? Should she? Myne sighed and thought of Eckhart. Strong, dependable, loyal to a fault. Maybe he could be better suited as a sword rather than a shield. Maybe Eckhart would be able to cut through these tangled feelings and to help her start life anew. Earlier, the sovereignty. Patrick.
Oops. Oops. I wasn't paying attention. I was getting water. It's not looking good.
Lord Ferdinand sighed his response when Eustace asked him how the meeting with the Zent had gone. After all this time making arrangements to have this talk about giving Charlotte temporary Alb's authority, it seemed that it was all looking to be a massive waste of time. Eustace and Eckhart both sighed in exasperation. Why must these royals make things so stupidly difficult? Lord Ferdinand told them what had transpired in the meeting. Usually, as attendants, they would have been permitted to remain inside the audience chamber. But the Zent had shooed all attendants, and only Lady Charlotte, Lady Florencia, and Lord Ferdinand had been allowed to remain. Now their lord was inconvenienced by having to explain what had happened to his retainers.
However,
He said,
it's not over yet. We are meeting tomorrow one last time. I am going to need some documents from the castle.
he handed Eustace a letter.
Please send this over. Let them know I need the documents by 7th bell.
A bell rang in the distance. It was now 5th bell.
Will my lord want tea here, or will you head downstairs with the rest?
Eustace asked, though from the looks of it, Eustace was the same opinion as Eckhart. Lord Ferdinand should take a little time to rest, and it would be easier for him to do so if he remained in his chambers. But their lord shook his head as if he read their thoughts.
I'll take it downstairs. I told Charlotte we'd continue our lesson.
I thought she had finished studying all the courses required for the Archduke candidates.
Eckhart said, confused. Lord Ferdinand smirked.
Indeed she has. But if she is to prove herself to the Zent and the rest of nobility, she must not fail to get first in class this year.
Eckhart and Eustace followed their lord downstairs to the dome's common room. During classes it was lively and full of children, but now it was empty, aside from Lady Charlotte and her retainers, who waited for Lord Ferdinand to start the lesson. It was odd to see sunlight streaming in through the windows, and for there to be lush green forest rather than snow outside.
I see you're ready.
Lord Ferdinand said with an approving nod.
Let's begin.
Eckhart and Eustace took their spot against the wall and stood at attention during the long hours that Lord Ferdinand tutored his niece. Lady Charlotte was admirably intelligent and rose up to the challenge, but even they could see that she looked like she was fraying around the edges. Her shoulders... Hold on a sec. Okay. Her shoulders looked tense and stiff as she worked at the desk, and there were bluish shadows under her eyes. She was working late into the night on duchy business, and even when coming here, Lord Ferdinand was giving her no time to rest. Eckhart could almost feel sorry for her, but his sympathy didn't extend that far. If she was to be the Ob and protect the duchy, then this was nothing. Her uncle and her mother were beside her, and she had the support of many aides. Everyone who knew what had happened to Sylvester was on her side. Besides, hadn't she caused them all this unending trouble? He sighed and thought of Myne all of a sudden. If there was anyone who was to be pitied, it was she. Like Charlotte, all this business was also wearing her down. He thought that it would be best if he stopped visiting her in the evenings, so she could retire early or have more time to herself, since she was so very busy in the daytime. But she had waved aside his concern. Since it was fifth bell, she was probably taking tea in the small sitting room that faced the garden. She liked small and cozy spaces, and she liked to have the windows open when it was sunny while taking her tea with plenty of gavage milk. That was a rather endearing trait of hers, for the way she took her tea was how most children drank it, sweet and milky. She would be reading, of course, but never one of the leather-bound tomes from the bookroom. Oh no, she only ever read her own Aramphis books while eating, because she claimed that she wouldn't mind so much if a crumb or two fell on its pages, because Aramphis books were cheaper. Cheaper. Eckhart wanted to laugh. Most lay nobles thought twice before purchasing a book, even an Aramphis one, let alone having a copy of every single Aramphis book ever published in their duchy. Mine sure was weird. She had asked for strong magic to be put in the windows of her bookroom so that the light wouldn't ruin the books, and even had one scholar entirely dedicated to the preservation of older volumes, especially those that were beginning to fall apart. Eckhart appreciated that. She didn't know it, but many of the books in there had once belonged to Heidmarie. When Heidmarie's stepmother, a Veronican, had taken over Heidmarie's mother's place, Heidmarie had decided that she would much rather place her family's book collection in the care of Lord Ferdinand, rather than see the precious tomes go to that hateful woman. Heidmarie would have wanted the books the books that had once belonged to her family to be well loved, well kept, and treasured, and no one but Myne and Lord Ferdinand would do to fulfill her wish.
What's the matter?
Eustace said, speaking softly as to not interrupt the lesson that was going on.
You look a little sad.
Eckhart blinked and saw his friend's perceptive eyes on him.
Nothing escapes you, huh?
He said with a wry smile. Eustace almost preened.
It is my job to notice these things, but anyway, what's gotten into you?
Eckhart did not reply. He valued his fellow comrade at arms, but it was hard to talk about these things with him. He'd gone so long not talking about Heidmarie because it had hurt so much, that now that he was beginning to slowly move on from that terrible pain, he found it incredibly awkward to open up.
I was thinking about mine.
He said. It wasn't a lie altogether. He had thought about Myne. Eustace looked troubled.
I see. I too have been troubled about young Myne. Tell me, in your honest opinion, do you think Blonfa dances in her heart over Lord Ferdinand?
Eckhart started.
What?
Shh!
Eustace hissed.
You'll draw their attention.
Eckhart grimaced apologetically.
But why do you ask? And anyway, this is not the place nor time.
Eustace looked troubled.
Indeed. I seem to have forgotten myself, but after that meeting I've begun to form suspicions. I do hope, that the goddess may yet grant her blessing upon our master, since Blonfa dances in his heart because of mine.
Eckhart's eyes widened.
What? Impossible!
Keep it down!
Eustace hissed.
I know it's surprising, but I myself did not realize this until last week, when Myne left the room after meeting Lord Ferdinand, and she was unable to contain her tears.
But...
Ha? Re-review ko pa.
Patrick?
Sorry, I was a little distracted. Enough.
Lord Ferdinand said with a glare.
You are much too distracting. Leave if you have something you need to discuss.
It is nothing, my lord.
Eckhart said, giving his lord a small bow and shot Eustace a glare. They didn't have time to talk afterwards, because Lord Ferdinand did not take dinner, and Eckhart promptly forgot Eustace and his ludicrous claims. And when 6 bell came around, Ferdinand went up to his chamber.
Did you not promise Myne that you'd eat, my lord?
I also promised her I'd sleep.
Lord Ferdinand had replied with a weary sigh.
I have no appetite, and I need to work late into the night, so I'll take this time to rest. Wake me up at 7th bell.
Yes, my lord.
Eustace said, and afterwards they left. They decided to head down to dinner since there wasn't anything pressing for them to do, but suddenly they saw one of the guards that usually stood at the teleportation circle. He had a note in his hand, the kind used for urgent messages.
From the castle, Lord Bonifacius,
He said.
What is it?
Lady Florencia said, appearing out of nowhere.
Let me read it.
The guard presented it, and Lady Florencia's attendant checked it before giving it to her mistress. Lady Florencia tore the seal impatiently and skimmed through its contents. Suddenly, she looked up at them, a smile of relief dawning on her face.
Awake. Sylvester is awake at last.
End of chapter. All right. So, we now know that Sylvester didn't die. He was in Jarib. He's now at last awake.
I mean, we already knew that he wasn't dead yet.
Yeah.
He was recovering.
Yes. Fun fact, this was supposed to have... I flipped the order of the previous chapter with this one. So we weren't supposed to know until basically this chapter. We're like, oh, he finally made it. Like we didn't know if he was going to make it. So then the next chapter would have started with Dolores and Hartmut trading the Hersphere face stone because they had made a bet over how long it would take, and so on and so forth. So, just a little detail. So, it was kind of like one of those chapters that I just want to make sure that I cover all the bases, but it's kind of like a little montage, like moving along. Several days are passing, so this is just a summary of what's happened since then, and sets the stage for what's going to happen in the rest of part 4. So yeah, I see some comments. By the way, I saw Shrek. The Shrek, like somebody said Shrek. I was like continually thinking as I was reading, like, what part are you thinking about? Like, how does that involve? So I think it's that, like, that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
What part was that? I'm trying to think back. When did I say that? Also, since we just finished reading Hannelore, I want you guys to, and this, I marked this as a Hannelore thing. Like, I kind of wanted to like point out to the threads. The starret.
I did notice that one. I just noticed that one.
Nice. So now you understand. So there has been canon dreams. Like, remember, Ferdinand had a dream of the Trombe incident. So there's some stuff going on with the dreams. So be on the lookout for that. But
It seems pretty well timed. Our reading this excerpt from from Hannelore and this chapter from your fanfic.
Yeah, it was providential. I did not plan it. So hey,
Sure.
It's divine intervention.
It's the divine stool. I mean, tool.
Shush.
Garner and Vintukta have woven so well.
They have indeed. By the way, what did you guys think of the Frida and Myne? This was me just going crazy because I was like, I wanted to have Frida and Myne friendship so bad. So this is just me like letting loose. So I don't know, like girls' night in. I was like, yes.
Yeah, some girl talk. It was fun.
Hello.
Frida was clearly exasperated.
Well, If you also remember, Frida was the voice of reason. If you guys remember when Myne was, when she knew that Myne was had a devouring, she was like pressuring her, like, Myne, you have to do something about it. Like, now is the time. You have to get tied down to some noble that will help you. Come on, Myne. And she was like exasperated too because she cared for her friend so much. She even like wept a little. So I was like, this is a friendship that I wish we could have had more of, but you know, story was not gonna allow it. So
I find Frida to be the kind of friend who's quite possessive about their supposed best friends. Like they want to be the one to have all the deeds on their best friend, but unfortunately they don't.
yeah.
Like she's one-sidedly being jealous and possessive of other people.
Yeah, she strikes me as that, like very competitive. Remember, her favorite thing in the world is to count little golden coins. So she likes to count things, and she likes to have the best of the best. So I imagine that she sees Myne as like, wow, this is like, I struck jackpot with this friend of mine, and now she wants to like keep her. But part of her is like she sees her as value, like as a business partner. But then I also wanted to soften her, like it's not just about the business side. It's like she recognizes now that she's an adult that she did bad when she was younger and trying to trick her into becoming part of the Otmar company. But she.
So, in my mind, it's always been that Frida always valued Myne as a potential friend, even if Myne didn't reciprocate the feeling. Excuse me. But, yeah, she's always wanted that friend because she was always isolated due to having the devouring. And when she met Myne, she's like, oh, yeah, I have a friend. I have kinship here. I can foster this relationship, and that's in my mind why she was trying to bring Myne into the Ortmar business.
Yes, it was good intentions, just went about it the wrong way. So yeah, we have Frida a little bit growing up. Somebody had questioned, do we know if Tully and Lutz are engaged or not? They are engaged. They're engaged. They're not married, but they are engaged. I think.
Oh,
at this point.
by the way, there's something I've been meaning to ask.
Yes.
Was Wilma ever part of her retinue in this weave?
Was who? Wilma. Yes, she was. But I think she's not her attendant. You know how she had like Delia and Rosina were the ones that attended to her most personal needs, bathed her and stuff. So Wilma, I think she's in the book production side of things. So she would be working with the scholars downstairs, doing books and working on prints and arts and
making
stuff.
pictures.
Making pictures.
So she did buy out Wilma as well.
Yes, she did buy her as well. Now, Wilma is, however, a special case, so she's on her own. She has her own office, so there's no man going in and bothering her. She's basically living the dream.
And no Elvira trying to steal her away.
Somebody wants to steal her away. Yeah, because Elvira would want to steal her away, but Myne is very protective of her people. She's protective of Wilma. She's very protective of Ella. As you guys knew from earlier, previous chapter, Eckhart keeps trying to, steal Ella because he's like, I love her cooking. But they have this thing, like, she's like, no way, you can't. I won't let you.
What about Monica and Nicola?
Monica and Nicola, they were kind of like out of necessity because she became a high bishop, so she needed more people to work for her. So in canon, so I don't really see them as being part of her core. She remained in the blue castle. She remained in the temple, basically with the same people as she had before: Gil, Fran, Delia, and Rosina. Delia's still with her. I'm
just hoping that they didn't become flower offerings.
Flowers.
Yeah. Well, in this world, it's if they want to be givers of flower offerings, they're free to do so. Remember, even in canon, like Rozemyne didn't outright prohibit it. She's like, as long as you are willing to be that kind of work, like you can still go and become that kind of attendant.
Right.
But
That's because Myne said they have a choice. Before her, it was more, well, you don't really have a choice.
In this case, I think Ferdinand, knowing his how much he hates, his past with coercion regarding, that, he wouldn't force people to do that. So I think in my head canon for this one, I don't think they ever forced women to do that. I think with him in command of the temple, kind of cleaned up how that kind of transaction is held. So, yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that better.
So, any other questions? This is just questions about this world.
Meant to... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I meant to consult you about that line that Myne was remembering from her dreams. I don't know who you wanted to have say it. As I had read ahead, but I didn't want it to be like spoilery, and like I actually didn't know.
It's kind of like her reasoning, like she just kind of like it's her. It's a good color. I didn't expect there to be like any other, divine voice. But it's kind of like how she understands it. So, again, we're getting canon stories. She knows instinctively that she and Ferdinand are meant to be, but Ferdinand is not in with that plan. What is up with Ferdinand? We will find out soon enough. Like, why doesn't Ferdinand feel the same way? We already know that he's psychologically a much more broken person in here after all the events that have happened. So I do hope that you guys bear with me. Don't get exasperated at like, why isn't Ferdinand like this is not canon Ferdinand.
Why won't you do things the way that they're supposed to be?
I couldn't hear what Akihana said. What is it, Akihana?
Sorry, Akihana.
I said Ferdinand is being stubbornly stupid.
Yes, he is being stubbornly stupid. Again, it's just him. I try to paint a Ferdinand who is very inflexible about his beliefs and value systems. Right now, he is of the belief and value that he is really just trouble and bother. Like, he's not worth loving. He doesn't deserve love. He is just... So, he's... Yeah. So take all his bad traits and magnify them.
Like, it's so annoying how he's still trying to uphold to his supposed promise with Günther. Like, Günther only told him not to treat, or rather, maybe groom Myne into his water goddess, but he never said anything about not taking him and not eventually taking her as her
wife.
Water goddess. Like,
well,
he was
that's kind of the same. That's basically semantics, though.
he was so focused on the grooming part that he did not even see the loophole.
I think, though, you're kind of like trying to look for a loophole there. Like, it's basically the same thing. Günther said, like, don't raise her in order to later have her be your concubine. Like, it could be like grooming, like the gross grooming, or like it would still be gross. So he just doesn't want her to like become like his, concubine, like, because he believes that Myne deserves better. Myne deserves to be with somebody properly, like as a wife or whatever. And if she has to become like a concubine, that at least it won't be because it's going to be Ferdinand that he's like, oh, I want her, so I'm just going to like do all these things so I can eventually keep her. So that was kind of like Günther. Günther does not want Myne to become like that because it would just be wrong. So anyway, that's kind of like, I don't want to go into more stuff because there's more to it than just the promise. But that's what's in the forefront of Ferdinand. Like, Ferdinand's mind is the promise. There's more though. There's political reasons and the promise. Just we'll go into it later. I promise you.
I do wonder.
Mm-hmm.
I do wonder what would happen if one day Myne somehow opens her heart out to Gunther and tell all of her woes about Ferdinand.
Okay, so if you want to read, somebody wrote a fix fanfic. Like I'm not supposed to encourage you guys, but because I like, okay, you're gonna fix my fanfic, okay, whatever. But yeah, if you want to know like somebody's take, because after chapter 28, apparently it was too painful for them to read, so they were like, nah, I'm going to rewrite this thing and it's gonna end happily. So if you want to go and see what kind of mental gymnastics go on for them to end together in the space of only one chapter, then by all means go and read my fanfic. At the end, at the final chapter, there is a list that says works inspired by this one. So I think it's called Inception. Yeah, so you can check that one out. Again,
I'm sorry, I kind of have a problem with people who say, I'm going to fix your art. I mean, you see this on social media all the time when someone puts their heart and soul into making something and someone's like, oh, this isn't good enough, I'm going to fix it. Make your own art. Don't fix someone else's art.
You know what? I felt kind of the same way. Like I felt taken. I was aback. I was like, like
It's like everyone complaining about like Rozemyne's Lessie.
Yeah.
For me, it's kind of like when I go to a potluck and I bring a dish and then someone starts, oh, why'd you put this in your dish? That's bad. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Well, then don't have it.
Yeah.
I don't care. Just have something else.
So thank you for saying that. I did not want to say it, but like when I first heard about it and read it, I was like, yeah, but then, I was like, I'm gonna be a good sport about it. Like maybe my fanficking is the same way for Kazuki Sensei if she feels that our fanfics are like that, like we're fixing her story. Like, so I have to be open about it. Kind of like, okay, I know this is my baby, but if I start to get angry, it just means that I'm taking it too seriously. Now, potluck dish, totally different matter, Patrick. I am 100% there with you because I would be taken aback. My mama does not need her cooking fixed. Notice I am not going to bring my own cooking to a potluck. I'll have my mom cook something.
Life hack.
Guaranteed success. Anyway. All right, you guys. So I've had so much fun. But you guys, we have to finish. A question. This still has hurt and comfort of Ferdinand in this fanfic. So yeah, this fanfic does have the tag hurt, no comfort, and also hurt and comfort. So it has both tags. So another point about Nicola is Nicola's a cook, so she wouldn't want to keep her. Probably not. Ella and Hugo are working pretty well for her. Hugo, though, in my head, Hugo kind of like works between her businesses and the house. Ella just mainly focuses on the house, while Hugo is out there fighting it out with Lise, Ilse, who is like, they're arch nemesis, but in a good co-worker kind of way. Anything else?
Speaking of what's his name?
Hugo?
Speaking of Hugo, was he ever invited to the Archduke's castle in this view?
No. He was not.
So Sylvester never tried to poach him.
You know what? That brings up a good point, because Sylvester did sometimes go into the temple to research or to check out what stuff was going on over there, but it was mostly to eat the food that was there. He did not go there to get flowers, though. He made sure to have Florencia know he never went there for flowers, but he did go several times to the castle. Myne knows him pretty well. She knows he's the Archduke. So he does know about the food. But he just, I guess he didn't manage to poach. I don't know. I didn't think about it that far. But you guys can come up with your own stories, I guess. Maybe Hugo does work in the castle. Maybe he does. I don't know. it's
If he
not.
never went to the castle, his engagement would have never been broken off.
That is true. That is true. But I figured it was going to be broken off anyway. I think part of it was that he was going too high. He was moving in circles that were too high, and the girl's family were like, maybe not. Maybe. Sometimes in this world, it feels like you can't marry too high up. Like, you don't want to marry down, but you also don't want to marry up. And I think Hugo was at the point where he was really gonna move up above where her family was comfortable with. I don't know. All right, you guys. So,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that her family probably wouldn't have been able to afford a dowry of what is to be expected of Hugo's new station in life.
yeah, probably Hugo would have been like not so picky about it, but you know, families think of different things, and yeah, so we'll see. Maybe he did go to the castle after all. Maybe Sylvester did poach him. Oh no!
How dare.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll leave it to you guys to decide. I haven't actually written Hugo in, or maybe I have. I have to do a full search to see if.
Or
he
has
Hugo.
she?
I don't know. I forget. All right, so we're gonna go now. You guys, we are going to return on Friday. I know we don't read Fridays lately, but we are going to be reading on Friday. Not sure about the time. Did I schedule the time, gang?
Yeah, I believe you did.
Oh yes,
It's
I
in the
did.
evening.
Friday at 4 p.m.
You
Pacific.
did that, but you also forgot to shill yourself. So like, subscribe, support your magpie.
Yes,
Come on, people.
yes, do that.
Give her some coffee. Buy her some coffee.
Give me some coffee. I actually, you know what, you guys? I do spend the coffee money on getting gear. I just, since I'm gonna do a special kind of video soon, I'm working on it. I promise you, I will put something on the other channel. It won't be a live. It will be like an actual upload. One of those expenses happened to be a dress, and I was like, yes, this dress is perfect.
Whoa.
So do be on the lookout for that. It'll be fun. I'm having great fun working on it. It'll take a bit.
Is this related?
What?
Is it related to the? I mean, is it related to the picture you sent in
Yes.
Discord about site checking?
Yes, I was
Like
scouting
location checking?
location. Yes, I was scouting locations. I found the location, so it'll be fun. I have a camera person ready. So well, it'll be fun.
I can't wait.
Oh, are we finally gonna see your face?
Oh, you guys already know my face, don't you?
No,
Actually, I don't.
Not in motion.
we don't.
Oh. Okay, well,
Fergie, where's your video?
we will rectify that. We'll rectify that. Yes, it will be a face reveal, though I thought I had already revealed it to some of you guys. But anyway, yes, I will do a face reveal, but not for the sake of doing face reveal. It's just because I couldn't get animation done. I was like, I don't want to animate. I'm lazy. I already have too much work doing like stuck with Premiere and After Effects. I don't want to do more of that. I already do that for a living. I just want to do something fun. So we're going to do that stuff. It's fun and hopefully it should work out.
Red Tempest is asking if the dress is a Rozemyne style dress.
No, it's not. It's not. Unfortunately, I don't have that much budget. But if you want that, then remember to, here's me shilling, remember to support your magpie on Ko-fi. Remember, this channel is not monetized, so it would help me a lot if you're enjoying these
She
things.
can be trained, folks. She will finally start to advertise her own self.
Yeah.
Speaking of a dress, if you were to get a Rozemyne style dress, which one would you get? The High Bishop style or the noble outfit or the uniform or the Royal Academy uniform?
I love the Royal Academy uniform, but I would so go for the one in the cover of Part 5, Volume 12. The blue one.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh,
It's gotta be one of my favorite, or if not, I think it's similar or the same as the one in the cover of Fanbook 8. It's also a blue one. I love blue, you guys. Blue's my favorite color. So, and it's just happens to be the same shade as Ferdinand's hair. So, I mean, come on.
Ooh.
Fergie. Yeah, Fergie's doing the things. Okay, so let's just close out for today. I've had lots of fun, but it has been a bit of a long read along. We did do Hannelore earlier. By the way, if you are interested, tomorrow we will be doing the Hannelore chit chat for chapters 13 and 14. Amazing chapters. Please join us tomorrow. All right.
Yes, join us.
Yep.
All right, let's end today. Thank you so much for joining us today, and again, thank you to those who read today. We had Teal reading Myne, Akihana reading Frida, Butterfly reading Florencia, Patrick reading Ferdinand, Crusher reading Eustace, Fergie reading Eckhart, and of course Yukihime reading The Guard. You guys did amazing as always. Till Friday, you guys, take care. Love ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Hi, chat.